if you're wanting to understand intervals better, you've come to the right place. An interval can be defined as the distance between two notes. In music, we use intervals basically to measure how far notes are apart from one another. You have major intervals, which occur in major keys, and apart from the minor second, the minor intervals are those that occur in minor keys. So that includes seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Augmented intervals are a semitone wider than major, and diminished a semitone narrower than minor. Perfect intervals occur in major and minor keys, and these include fourths, fifths, and octaves. An augmented is a semitone wider than a perfect, and a diminished is a semitone narrower than a perfect interval. In this video, I'm going to show you two methods you can use to calculate your intervals. The first is through counting semitones, and the second using scales. The first method we're going to do is counting semitones. As you know, a semitone is the shortest distance between two notes in staff notation. We can calculate our interval through counting the number of semitones starting on the lower of the two notes and moving towards the upper of the two notes. And here, as you can see, a total of 12 semitones gives you a perfect octave. Here is a list of how many semitones there are in each of the intervals that we need to know. It's a good idea to actually write out this list of intervals and semitones before you start calculating your intervals each time. Okay, on to an example. We first count our interval through where it is in the scale. So we count the degree of the scale. This is going up 5 notes, so it's a fifth. Every space and every line. Then we go on to count the semitones, and on our list, 7 semitones gives us a perfect fifth. So the correct answer for this one is perfect fifth. The next example we have here, we've got to count our degree of the scale, starting with that B flat, and we see that it's a sixth. We go on to count our intervals between those two notes. We see there 9, which means it's a major sixth. So as you can see, we're moving really quickly through these examples. So I suggest pushing pause just after the example has come onto the screen and try and work it out yourself before pushing play again and seeing what the answer is. Likewise with this one, the D sharp to the C sharp. We've got to count very carefully. 7, it's a seventh, which means that we're also then going to count our semitones. They are 10, which means that we have got a minor seventh in this case. When it comes to augmented and diminished intervals, there's one more step in the method of counting the semitones. As you can see, the augmented and diminished intervals, apart from the augmented fourth, are not listed on our list of numbers of semitones. However, the augmented intervals are simply one semitone higher than the major or the perfect, and the diminished one lower than the minor or the perfect. In this example, from the A flat to the F sharp, we have a sixth. When we count our semitones going up from the A flat to the F sharp, we see that we've got 10 semitones. However, a sixth, there's no option on our list for a sixth with 10 semitones. That's because an augmented sixth has 10 semitones. So that means that it's one higher than a major. And so this is an augmented sixth interval. If you're enjoying this video, please do subscribe to the Imagination Lab YouTube channel to get all of our new theory videos as we post them. Now, on to calculating intervals using scales. If your circle of fifths is a little bit rusty, please watch our video on everything you need to know about scales before going on to the next section. The scale method for calculating your intervals arises out of the fact that your perfect and major intervals do occur in your major key. In a minor key, your minor thirds, minor sixths, and minor sevenths occur in the key, and your perfect fourths and fifths, but not the seconds. Your second in a minor key is actually major. The method starts the same way as the counting the semitone method, where you've got to calculate your interval, but then you've got to ask the question, is the upper note in the major key of the lower note? In this case, is B in the key of E major. And from our key signature, we can see that we've got 4 sharps, F, C, G, and D. B does occur in the major key, which means we've got a perfect fifth in this case. This example, you've got an F over a C, which we know is a fourth. But when we look in the key of C, it's a nice, easy one because C doesn't have any key signatures. So we know that F is in the key of C, which means it is also perfect. In this example, we've got a seventh. G is 7 notes higher than A. In the key of A, do we have a G natural? No. A major has a G sharp. G natural is 1 semitone lower than the G sharp, which means this is a minor seventh, and it does also occur in A minor. In this example, we've got D to B, which is a sixth. In the key of D, is there a B natural? And yes, the answer is yes, which means it's a major sixth. This example, we've got an F sharp over a G. Is there an F sharp in G major? That would make it a major seventh because there is an F sharp in the key of G major. In this melodic example, we have got an E over an F sharp. That means it's a seventh, but it means that we have to ask the question, is there an E natural in the key of F sharp major? And the answer is no, it should be an E sharp. So it's a semitone lower, which makes it minor. In this example, we've got an F and a B flat. Is there a B flat in the key of F? Yes, there is. So that is perfect. Compound intervals are intervals which are wider than an octave. They work exactly the same way as all of our other intervals that we've covered so far do, but the major difference is that they're just 7 notes more. Be careful, you mustn't add 8 to the number to calculate your compound interval. It's just 7. There's 7 notes in the scale. So in this example, you can see we've got a B and an E, but it's more than an octave apart. There are 2 ways to describe these intervals. You can either describe it in terms of the exact distance that they are apart, like in this case, it's a 12th, or you can describe it in terms of what it is equivalent to less than an octave. So in this case, a compound perfect fifth. In that, when you're describing it according to the low interval, you use the word compound. In this example, we've got a C sharp over an A. They're 10 notes apart. So you've got to count it and you see it's a 10th, and we know that it would be a compound third. In the key of A, is there a C sharp in A major? Well, we know that. We can see it's yes, it is. So that means it's a major 10th or a compound major third. In this example, we've got a G flat over a C. It's 12 notes apart, so it's either a 12th or a compound fifth. When we get to our circle of fifths, we've got to ask ourselves, is there a G flat in the key of C major? Well, you know that there isn't. A G flat is 1 semitone lower than G, which means it's diminished. So this is a diminished 12th, or you can call it a compound diminished fifth. This example, we've got a G natural over a D flat, which means it's an 11th or a compound fourth. So the question is there a G natural in the key of D flat? Well, no, it should be a D flat. We can see from our key signature, this is 1 semitone higher than G flat, which means it's an augmented 11th or a compound augmented fourth. When the key of our lower note has more than 6 sharps or flats, it's slightly impractical to use that key to calculate our interval. So, like for example, this case, we've got a D sharp at the bottom. When we look at our circle of fifths, D sharp is not a practical key to use. So what we can do is actually lower both notes, but keep the interval the same. It's still a 7th. So our D sharp has become a D natural. But now we've got to ask a different question. We've got to say, is C flat in the key of D major? Well, it should be a C sharp. And if it was a minor, it would be C natural. This is a semitone lower than that, which means it is diminished. A diminished seventh interval is one lower than a minor. The next few examples are similar to those that are on the Royal School's online exam. In the first example, it's very easy to see. We can count the interval between the F sharp and the B. It's an 11th or a compound fourth. Is there a B in F sharp major? And the answer is yes, which means it's perfect. So that would be a compound perfect fourth or a perfect 11th. The next example, we simply count up the notes. We see it's a fifth. The lower of the two notes in A. So in A major, do we have an E flat? And the answer is no. It's one lower than what it would be, which is an E. That means that this is a diminished fifth, one semitone lower than perfect. The next example, we can simply count the difference between the two notes. It's a ninth. So it's either a ninth or a compound second. When we look in the key of C major, is there a D? Yes, there is a D in the key of C major, which means it's going to be a major ninth or a compound major second. In this question, we're needing to add notes above the given notes to form the intervals. The first one, we're looking for a compound perfect fifth. We need to add 7 to 5 to give us the distance that we need to count in order to fill in the upper note. So 7 plus 5 is 12. And we see then that we have to fill in a B, which is 12 notes higher than E. Next question is, do we need to chromatically alter that B, make it a B flat, or leave it as a B natural for it to be a perfect interval? Well, let's look at our circle of fifths. Is there a B natural in the key of E major? And we know that perfect intervals are in the major key. So we see that, yes, in fact, there is a B natural in the key of E major. So we can actually just leave that B as a B natural, and it's correct. It is a perfect interval. In the next example, we have a minor 7. So that's a little bit more straightforward. We've just got to count 7 notes above the F in order to find what the upper note is. So we can count that and we see that we've got an E. Now, do we need to chromatically alter this E for it to be minor? Well, let's have a look at our circle of fifths. In the key of F major, is there an E natural? We see yes, there is, because F major just has a B flat. We're actually looking for the minor, which is a semitone lower than the major. So if we have an E natural in F major, to lower the semitone is going to give us an E flat. So we in fact need an E flat for this to be a minor seventh. In the next example, we've got a compound interval, but it's an augmented 12th. So we've got to simply fill in a note that is a 12th higher than A flat. Well, that's quite easy. We just count up 12 and we can see that we have got an E. But we also need to bear in mind that a 12th is the same as a fifth. And fifths are perfect. So whatever the note is in the major key is going to be perfect. And we are looking for an augmented, which is a semitone higher than perfect. So let's go to our circle of fifths. In the key of A flat major, do we have an E natural? No. In the key of A flat, it's going to be an E flat. So in order for it to be augmented, we need to raise the E flat to an E natural to make it augmented. And we see that actually we have an E natural. So we can just leave that interval as a E natural, and we have the correct answer over there. In the next example, we have an F, and we're looking for a note that is a minor third above that? Well, that's quite easy. We simply have to count from F upwards. We can see F, G, A. So the note that we're going to fill in will be an A. Now the question is, do we need to chromatically alter that A for it to be minor? Well, let's have a look at our circle of fifths once again. So on the circle of fifths, we see that F major has got a B flat, which means that A natural occurs in the major key of F major. We're in fact looking for the minor. So either we can just simply lower it one semitone, because a minor third is one semitone lower than a major, or we could actually refer to our relative minor key. We see a little bit further down there that F minor has got an A flat. It's a relative minor of A flat major. So let's make it a flat so that we simply add that flat, and then we know we have got a minor third. In this question, we're simply needing to figure out whether or not an interval is perfect, major, minor, diminished, or augmented. So we've got to do two things. Of course, we've got to figure out whether or not the upper note is in the major key of the lower note. But before we do that, the first step is really just to count up what our interval is. And we can count from the A all the way up to the C, and we see that we've got a tenth, which if we say 10 minus 7 gives us 3, so that means we've got a compound third. And thirds we know could be major, minor, diminished, and augmented. We don't have perfect thirds. So let's have a look at our circle of fifths. In the key of the lower note, which is A, so in A major, do we have a C natural? Well, let's have a look. No, we've got a C sharp in the key of A major. So that means that we don't have a major third. Let's just, for interest's sake, have a look above there where A minor actually has got no key signature if we look at the top of the circle. So we can say that A minor has got a C natural. So then we can confidently deduce that this is going to be a minor third. It's either a minor compound third or a minor tenth. So there we can circle minor. In the next example, we've got a key signature, and we can see that our lower note is also an A in this case. And the distance between these two notes is actually a 6. So we've got either a major and minor again situation, or augmented and diminished. So is there an F sharp in the key of A? Oh, well, we've just seen A, but let's have a look again. And we can see that in A major, we've got an F sharp in the key of A major, which means that this is going to be a major interval because the F sharp is in the key. So then we can confidently simply say that it is a major interval. The next example, we have got a C flat over a D flat. So we can simply count up from the D flat to the C flat, and we see that we have got a seventh. So the next question we need to ask is the upper note in the major or minor key of the lower note? Well, let's have a look. Is there a C flat in the key of D flat major? So when we go to the circle of fifths, we can see that D flat major has got 5 flats. It's got a B flat, an E flat, an A flat, a D flat, and a G flat. Nowhere in that list is there a C flat, which means that in D flat major, we've actually got just a C natural. But when we look at what we've got there, this is actually a C flat, a semitone lower than the C natural, which would be in D flat major. So knowing that a minor interval is simply one lower than the major, we can say that we have got a minor seventh in this case. Okay, so those are all the examples. I hope that you've enjoyed going through those. And don't forget to go through to the Imagination Lab website to have a look at all the things that we offer you there.